Hi, Laura. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me today. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing well. Yeah, thank you. And it's my pleasure to chat with you.
Awesome. Yay. Can you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself? What should we know about you?
Sure. So right now I'm a third year student at Emmanuel College. I'm doing my Master's of Divinity there. So I'm actually in my final term of the degree right now. And I've been very much enjoying that. And one of my courses this year for that degree is what's called contextual education, which is kind of like a placement at St. Matthew's. And I've been really enjoying learning in that context and having Lauren as a supervisor there and getting to know people at St. Matt's. And I'm there every second Sunday because every other Sunday I am working part time at Runnymede United Church. So my rhythm at St. Matt's is kind of a bit of a leapfrogging one, but that's what I'm up to these days.
So you're in your final year. What has that process been like for you, and what kind of drew you to ordained ministry? Can you talk a bit about that journey?
Yeah, sure. So I'm in my final year of the Masters of Divinity program, but I would say my process when I kind of started consciously discerning a call to ministry would have been about a year before starting that degree. And I mean, it's always kind of interesting to try to talk about because it feels so kind of close and personal and obvious to me. And then sometimes when I try to actually express it, I go, "Oh, how do I put this into words?" But I would say that my involvement at church throughout my whole life, and then especially kind of in my teen years, then I was away from my undergrad and wasn't as involved with my church community, but then kind of moving back to Toronto for the kind of 4 years between my first degree and my MDiv and getting involved again in my congregation. It's that involvement in my church community that I think really did begin to steer me in the direction of taking up these studies and discerning a call to ministry. And it was in the encouragement of people in that congregation, and that's Trinity St. Paul's United. So that's a congregation that Bloor Street knows quite well. And for a few years before I started to discern my own call, I had people in the congregation asking me whether it was something I was considering. And I was always really flattered, but thought, wow, that's weird. What's that about? And then when I actually started to realize, oh, this is something that is happening in my life and something that I'm feeling called to, suddenly that kind of made sense. So I really do thank my community of Trinity St. Paul's and credit my journey in many ways to the encouragement and the chances for leadership I had there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so singing in the choir there was always really important to me, and then being on different committees, being involved in different ways. Um, so that's a bit about how I started to discern that call to ministry.
That's so cool. Yeah, just how all those pieces kind of fall into place to get you to where you are now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you've been at St. Matt's as a student minister. Can you talk more about your time there? Like what you've maybe something cool that you've learned or something you've gotten to do?
Sure. Well, as I mentioned, I've really enjoyed my time at St. Matt's, and something that feels really neat. And people have heard me talk about this before at St. Matt's, so hopefully they're not getting sick of hearing me say this. But that was actually the congregation that my family was part of when I was a baby. I was baptized at St. Matthew's. And so until I was around 6 years old, that was the church that we attended. And so it's actually been really neat getting to see people there who remember me from when I was a really little kid and who I recognize their names, or over the years I've heard my parents say, "Oh, so and so is up to this these days," or "I heard that about this person." And when I was deciding which church to do contextual education at, it was the director of the contextual education program, Professor Wig Stevenson, who said, "Oh, well, a church that's really close to you is St. Matthew's because I live in the area." And I said, "Oh, actually, that is a church that I used to go to with my family." And Lauren was actually already involved in my discernment process. Lauren has been serving as a mentor in what's called my circle of accompaniment. So that's part of the kind of journey of discerning my call and moving through the candidacy process. So I said to
Mhm.
Natalie, yeah, I know that church. And in fact, I'm already lucky to be working with Lauren. So it just seemed like a really natural fit. So that's been a real joy. And then I really have just enjoyed being present for Sunday morning worship and to get to be involved in some leadership there. Um,
Mhm.
the day that St. Matthew's celebrated becoming an affirming congregation was a really joyous that day, and I was
Yeah.
very glad and to work with you in planning that service a bit. So I was really glad to be involved with that. That's one highlight that stands out.
Yeah, that's awesome. That was such a good day.
Mm-hmm.
That was a
Yeah.
great. And so you were also there at that first service, the first joint service between Bloor Street and St. Matt's. Can you how was that for you?
It was great. It was fun to see because Trinity St. Paul's and Bloor Street do have some overlap. Some of the faces that were there, some of the musicians are familiar to me. So
Yeah.
it was kind of neat to get to see people there who I'm used to encountering in a different, slightly different context.
Hmm.
But it just felt, it was, of course, it's disappointing that people couldn't gather in the church for that, but it still felt like a really kind of full space, and there were just so many people there between the musicians and those leading worship, um, that it really did feel like a kind of a joyous thing to come together, and I hope that that came across in what was live streamed. But to me, it was just really wonderful to get to gather in that context and to think about and to kind of listen to what Lauren and Russ are planning in their leadership together, and to get to be around such a vibrant and big team. That seemed really exciting to me.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, because everyone brings something different. And so
Exactly.
getting to like learn from each other and collaborate, like that's pretty awesome.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's one thing that you're looking forward to in the year ahead going forward in your journey?
Hmm. Well, one thing I'm looking forward to in terms of just what I'll continue to learn at St. Matt's is the chance to be with another congregation while I continue on in contextual education. And for me as a student who is just kind of watching and learning by trying things out and then reflecting on the work that I do, it's such a gift to have a whole other community, to be kind of introduced to them and to meet more people and to get to watch another minister as well, to have Russ there and to kind of just learn from as many people as possible. So for me as a student, that shift is something I'm really looking forward to, in terms of contextual ed. And then in terms of the next year in general, I'm looking forward to graduating when the time comes.
Yeah, that'll be good. That'll be
Yeah.
good. You've obviously like put in a lot of hard work, and yeah, that'll be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way they can do that?
Email would be the best way to get in touch with me. So they can use my U of T email, which I know the St. Matt's community has. But I'm sure if there's ever anything that I'm up to, it'll be included in whatever newsletters go out. Um, but that's just laura.gallagher-doucette at mail.utoronto.ca. So that's the best way to get in touch with me. Or of course through Reverend Lauren, if you ever have anything to that you'd like to pass along to me, I'm in touch with Lauren, so that's a good avenue as well.
Perfect. That's great. Is there anything else that you want to add before we wrap up?
I guess just my thanks to both communities for being willing to work with a student and to journeying with me in this part of my learning. It really is such a good learning experience for me and really a lot of fun. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity, and it's just so nice to meet different people and get to learn in such an immersive way. So I'm really looking forward to the next term ahead, and especially with this kind of new infusion of energy and happenings. So I guess that would be the last thing I would add.
That's excellent. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Thanks, Amanda.